My name is Alan Oakley, and I have the honor and privilege of serving as the president and chief operating officer of Charles Aris. A little bit about Charles Aris. Charles Aris is what most people would refer to as a boutique retained executive search firm. We're celebrating our 56th year being in business, something we're very proud of. We work across a number of different industries and functional areas. Last year, we conducted 243 searches successfully, and we work all over the United States, so no geographical boundaries. We're headquartered out of Greensboro, North Carolina. We also have another office in Washington, D.C. A quick summary about this episode. I am super thrilled to announce the launch of Aris Amplify, a brand new contingency division within the Charles Aris family. I'm joined with Aris Amplify's executive director, Kim Shapiro. And during today's session, we'll be focusing on, the launch of Aris Amplify, but also covering a number of other topics related to a contingency search and probably a few random nuggets thrown in there as well with other topics. Individuals listening may be asking themselves, why Aris Amplify, right? Why now? Why contingency now? And there's a pretty simple answer. The main answer would be, over the years, Charles Aris clients have repeatedly asked if Charles Aris had any solution for effectively recruiting mid-level talent, maybe not the executive level, but mid-level talent. We're usually hearing about the same challenges over and over, right? Internal recruiting teams were stretched thin, and our clients needed access to world-class talent in an efficient manner with qualified candidates. Thus, we made a strategic decision to enter into the contingency recruiting space. And just like with any launch, we needed to locate and attract and convince, right, a world-class leader to come partner with the Charles Aris family. And we are blessed and feel very lucky to have landed Kim Shapiro as the executive director. She is the fearless leader of Aris Amplify and the fearless leader of everything we're doing on the contingency side. She comes with deep experience and expertise within the space. And again, I'm super thrilled that we're launching it, but also just even more excited to be able to partner with Kim on this killer new adventure we're going on. And obviously, it's a service that has a very high demand in the marketplace. And we're already off to a great start. So it's very, very exciting. With that, I'll turn it over to Kim to introduce herself, and we'll take it from there.
Thanks, Alan. I appreciate that. Well, hi, everybody. I am Kim Shapiro, as Alan just said. I just joined this amazing organization last November, and it has been such a fun ride already. Not even 90 days in, and I feel like I've been here, well over a year, fully integrated. Already have some good friendships, so it's been great. A little bit about me. I've been in the industry, the contingent side of this industry for close to 18 years. In another life, I like to say, I was an accountant. I did that for about 8 years. I had a little bit of a career tantrum where I just decided this can't be my life. So I actually left accounting to be a stay-at-home mom, everyone. The toughest job on the planet. It lasted 3 whole days. So I decided that's not for me either. And I joined actually Robert Half International, which I think everybody knows who they are. If you know anything about this industry, you know who they are. I think they're the first professional services staffing firm, 45. I was with them for about 4 or 5 years, all contingent and temporary staffing at the time. Was in the Texas and Oklahoma markets for them. Helped them turn around a couple of branches, and then I left to go into smaller organizations. Moving on, I have been really a part of a couple of launches, ground floor launches. I have been a part of rebuilds, so organizations that had been around for quite some time, but they just weren't doing as well as they wanted, and so I would go in and help them turn the operation around. And then January 2023, decided to launch my own company, Shapiro Search. Did that for a couple of years. While I'm very proud of that endeavor and so happy I took that leap, I'm equally, if not more proud, to say that I'm no longer responsible for that. And so now I have joined Aris Amplify to help them launch their contingent practice. It is my passion. I say it sounds cliche to say that this really is my passion, but it is. I've loved it since the day I walked into this industry. I knew I was cut out for it. I knew I was meant for it. I was a little bit older. I was a whole, I think 32 years old when I got in this industry. But, oftentimes we bring people right out of college, right? They just come right in. They've never had a job outside of, maybe their college, service position. And so they come in, this is their first corporate exposure. That was not my case. I had a 8 to 10 year, career before I ever joined this industry. But I remember when I started in it, I thought, why did it take me so long? I hate that it took me so long to get here. So that's a little nutshell version of me. I'm happy to be here. Thank you, Alan, so much for that wonderful introduction. Yeah, it's been a ride and I love it.
On behalf of the Charles Aris family, we love it as well. And we're so stoked that you're here. So thank you for joining us. I'd like to just ask a few questions, right? So at Charles Aris Executive Search, we know the executive search industry well. The contingency space is different, right? And I'm on a learning path myself. And Kim, thank you for helping me learn. It's awesome. But there are kind of differences in why companies would need to or want to use contingency services, right? And a lot of that is around speed and urgency. Not that we don't have that in the executive search side, but I think it is even more critical in the contingency search side. And there's still critical positions that our clients need to fill, right? These are not
right.
super low level positions, right? These are mission critical roles, all the same.
They're key roles, right?
And with your experience over the, past decade or 18 years, how much have you seen the contingency space change? As technology had of course, technologies have a huge impact on all businesses, but have you seen it really affect the ability to locate and attract candidates? And also, do you see it replacing anything that we do?
I don't.
I
don't. And I get this question a lot. I get it from clients, get it in casual conversations. But frankly, my husband is the one who brings it up more often than anyone. He's like, are you going to have a job in 10 years? And the funny thing is, there is still a people element that is essential in this business. So what the AI tools do and kind of accommodate is allowing us to move faster, allowing us to be better, but it doesn't remove the people element of still having to review a resume. Yeah, it's going to go in and it's going to create sort of a list of individuals that you could reach out to, like these people will fit your role, but it's not going to do the hard work of picking up the phone and talking to that individual and finding out, but are they really qualified? An AI tool is not going to really have the ability to call out can I say on a podcast, the BS, where we can, right? And we can decipher and drill down where I don't know that those AI tools are going to do that. They're just going to allow us to be better, and they're just going to allow us to be faster. But I don't necessarily see it replacing us.
Yeah, I totally agree, right? Nothing replaces the meaningful conversations that we have to have,
right.
With candidates to educate them, but also to get to the truth, as you mentioned. I'm in total agreement. AI is a great tool. We'll continue to leverage to help provide efficiencies, but I don't see it ever taking the place of what we do.
Because
it is a human. It's a people business, right? So it's anytime you insert technology that is not genuine and authentic, I think it will get rejected, regardless of the industry.
And because we're people, we're complicated. There's variables, right? So, where AI can go in and say, hey, this person appears to be within like a compensation range that the market would, the market will deem it within a compensation range based on skill set, education, all of that. There's so many parameters around that. And AI isn't going to be able to drill down on those types of things. And it's just a little complicated. So, yeah, I don't see it replacing us. I just see it making us better.
Awesome. I just wanted to get that one, cover that topic out of the gates.
Yeah.
So thank you for the insight there. Regarding your experience in dealing with finance and accounting roles, have you seen any shift over the past? I'm kind of speaking since COVID going forward, any shift there's been shift to remote work, right? Is there any shift back to that? But what are the main, factors or variables you have seen that have changed in the contingency world versus 10 years ago? Is there anything that sticks out?
There's two things, actually. There's availability of talent, right? There's the market just doesn't have the numbers to pull from that it used to. And then there's that whole remote versus hybrid thing. So we'll speak to each one of them separately. So starting with the availability. If you think about it, boomers are exiting the market at a massive rate, right? Every single year, every single day. Like they calculated it down to like whatever the number is, and it's an
Yeah.
astronomical number. And so they're
It's crazy.
exiting, and the boomers, well, that was a big generation. I think it wasn't the most populated generation in the last 5 generations. And so you have all of this talent, highly, highly skilled talent, by the way, exiting the market. And just speaking specific to the accounting and finance world, by the way. And then, you look at the individuals, what is this, Gen Z coming up? I think it's Gen Z. There's even one behind that one. I don't even know what it is. But think of the ones coming out of college right now. They've done a study, and those graduating with accounting degrees right now, I can't remember the statistic, but it's way down. And even those that do. So let's take those individuals that actually do graduate with their accounting or finance degrees, and they actually do join the profession. They're not staying in it. So they get in it for 1 to 5 years, and then they decide this isn't for me. I'm out. So not only do we have not as many people going into the profession, those that choose it aren't staying in it. So this is we think it's interesting right now. Y'all stay tuned. Like the next 10 years, AI probably needs to come in and help out a little bit, because there's going to be so many gaps from a talent perspective. I just don't know how they're going to bridge that. So because boomers are exiting and the newer generations are not sticking with the profession. So it'll be interesting to see. And I think the CPA Society said it was down 33.3% or something like that with the number of individuals getting their CPA licenses year over year.
That's incredible, actually.
And that's a big number if you think about that. It's huge.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, you think about less supply and greater demand in that space over time, where being able to locate and attract critical talent within the finance accounting space is only going to get more and more critical.
Exactly.
And we hear it all the time, right, on the executive search side. And we heard enough of it with clients wanting a contingency solution, which is part of the impetus to get it up and running. But with the demographic factors and variables playing into the war for talent, I mean, it's like you said, I think over the next decade, we're kind of just we've been in this situation, but we're just getting going. And over the next decade, it will continue to be challenging for organizations
100%.
to find like the talent they need to move the needle, right?
100%.
I mean, people, with all the technology advances, it's great, but people are the driving force around pretty much all innovation within business, right? Including even automations, right? Somebody's got to come up with those automations on the manufacturing side. And at the end of the day, people are culture. And culture is what's going to win, right? I know this gets harped on a lot, but I'm directionally correct when I say, we're entering a period where the first time there will be more jobs available than people since the Industrial Revolution. And which basically correlates to, if you do not have a world-class culture, there's going to be other companies that do, and talent is going to go where the culture fits their values, and it fits their career path, and it fits kind of who they want to work with and what they want to do. And culture is going to end up winning that battle, right? But culture, again, goes back to people, and it's critically important. How have you seen since COVID? I'm just curious, literally, how have you seen the hiring approach in the contingency arena, right? The hiring approach that hiring authorities have regarding selling or educating on culture post-COVID? Has it changed?
I think there's still a big gap there. I think they're largely, and I do want to get back to like that second thing that I've seen the biggest change in, which kind of actually is all around this, which is the whole hybrid versus remote thing. So it kind of fits and plugs right into this. But I think there's still a big gap, or a misnomer rather. Organizations are still in that candidates need to sell themselves. We don't have to sell ourselves. There's still a lot of organizations that operate under that mindset, and they're the ones that unfortunately are just not going to win long term, right? Candidates are now also interviewing the organization. They want to plug into a place, and that whole sell your soul mentality that my generation had, my parents' generation had. I think that is kind of diminishing. That we just don't have. Employees don't want that anymore. And honestly, I don't think they're wrong. I think there does need to be a little bit of separation. I think, we do have families and we do have lives outside of the organizations that we represent. And I think that whole sell your soul mentality is shifting because it was time for it to. That said, organizations that haven't fully embraced that are going to struggle, maybe not winning the talent, but certainly retaining it. So that has been a big, big shift. And that leads me to the whole remote, hybrid versus in-office dilemma, I'm going to call it. It basically, and it's so funny how it shifted from what I used to say like 2-3 years ago to today, because 2-3 years ago, what's that, 2-3 years post-COVID, I would say, wow, it's an impasse, man. It's a meeting of the minds. And who's going to win? Is it going to be the employers? Is it going to be the employees? Like, I don't know, man. Like, everybody has such a compelling case. I don't know who's going to win. Well, 2-3 years ago, I would say the employees are going to win. They're going to win because they're not going to take the jobs, right? And then there's going to be all these vacancies and gaps, but I'm starting to see that that's not necessarily the case. There's a lot of organizations that are pulling larger. I will say larger. I'm going to say, let's say 250 million plus. Those organizations, a lot of them are bringing people back to the office, which really surprises me. And I don't know the answer. I don't know what's right. I don't know which one's wrong. I'm just reporting on the, what I'm hearing and seeing. But right now, it looks like employers are going to win, especially those large companies. Employees drew a line in the sand and said, I'm not going back to the office, so good luck to you. And now here we are, and they did stay. They did stick around, and they're going back to the office. So that's just kind of what I'm seeing. But I think the small mid-sized organizations they've still adopted and hanging on to the remote environment. I got to say, I'm an in-office person. I will always prefer it. But
Likewise.
The majority of my employees over the last 5 years have I would say like 95% wanted the remote option. And I've not really had a problem with it. Does that mean I've never had an employee that took advantage or wasn't strong, working remotely? Of course not. Obviously, there's going to be outliers. But by and large, I feel that especially in a job like ours, Alan, which is largely production driven, you've got an organization where you can measure the outcomes. Does it really matter if they're in the office? Like they're getting the job done or they're not getting the job done. But I'll tell you one thing Charles Aris does right and well, and that I've been so impressed with. I think a lot of companies perhaps are bringing people back to the office because they've never really figured out how to manage remotely.
That's right.
So it's not that it wasn't successful. It's just they never learned how to manage it. And you guys do that very, very well. There's a lot of FaceTime. I would say Zoom is used for everything, right? And I feel like I've had more FaceTime on Zoom, even within the walls of this org, like here, sitting on site as I am right now. I probably see people more on Zoom than I do like in person, even though I'm here. And I'm speaking to even the people who are here as well, right? But for whatever reason, people were so accustomed to the Zoom thing that I think, we kind of default to that. But that's kind of what I think. I don't know who's ultimately going to win that battle, but
that makes sense. I think it remains to be seen
right now.
Yeah, it remains to be seen. I think one thing I've noticed, I guess, post-COVID and going remote, and you alluded to it a little bit, but you have to have your team members have to have an emotional connection to the firm, right?
Yeah.
And we all know people work for people, right? People don't work for companies; they work for people. And so having that emotional connection that is genuine and that is meaningful, that is genuine, and that is impactful. I don't care what anybody says. Individuals want to be able to work for a company and show up for work and be their authentic selves and know that they are going to be accepted, they're going to be supported, they're going to be developed. At the end of the day, they're going to be loved to a certain extent, right? While they're at that organization, right? That's like table stakes, right? In order to, whether you're remote or not. But when we went to the remote environment in 2020, early 2021, and we're remote, hybrid, or in office, right? It's whatever you choose. We worked a lot on a strategic plan to roll this out, but we made very significant plans, and we spent a lot of time on how do we ensure that emotional connection stays intact, right? We had it when individuals were in the office, right? You get to see your team members every day, face to face, all that good stuff. But how can we replicate that the best we can, right? From onboarding, you're right, from onboarding, which is critically important, right? Through the training process, right? Of the first 2 weeks of training that we have, but even it goes well beyond that, right? 6 months. How are we creating that emotional connection, and also making sure that we're supporting and developing the individuals in a remote way? And we
your
have
mentor program. You guys have a mentor program where
sure.
you connect with somebody. I think that's essential. So yeah, you guys do such a great job with it.
And it was critical that we got it right, candidly. I mean, we were very apprehensive to go remote when we made that decision. We were all in, but you only have one chance to get it right. If you don't get it right, we knew we were going to be way behind the 8 ball. We were fortunate to have a great team to spend the needed time on it, but I feel like we did get it right. To your point, it's something that I'm proud of, and we are very transparent at Charles Aris, right? To where if individuals, it's rare that we have someone that's like not performing, but it's obvious. It's obvious to them. It's obvious to everyone, right? Because we're transparent, which I
Well,
like a
and
lot too.
think about organizations that are pulling everybody back into the office. Like this is a fully in-office opportunity, period. And we just talked about what has shifted the most in the last 10 years. There are not enough people to take all the jobs that we have. So you already have this narrow pool of individuals that you can pull from, right, to identify talent for your organization. The more niche those roles get, the fewer and fewer and fewer people that are available. And now you've put yourself in the confines of a geographic, like this tight location. So you lose out on outstanding, qualified talent because you're looking from this narrow viewpoint. So, and I don't know. It's challenging to get clients to see around that, but
It is.
Yeah.
Like as you mentioned, it's dependent from client to client, but where it'll finally end up, we don't know. But navigating those waters right now, especially on the client end, it's interesting. It makes it fun, I would say.
It does make it fun. That's
It
true.
does make it fun. Looking to elevate your career? Aris Amplify connects you with top opportunities. Follow our LinkedIn page for updates on job openings and insights from experts in contingent recruiting. You mentioned earlier, and I've seen this just come through in flying colors, is your passion for for business in general, right? I feel like you're a businesswoman first. You just happen to be a subject matter expert in contingency search, right? But you do have a genuine passion for it. It comes through in what you do every day, and I think I know why you have a passion for it, right? I know where your passion comes from and lies, but if you had to talk about it from a 30,000-foot level of really why contingency search was kind of a hook, line, and sinker for you, right? You knew once you got exposure to it, it was for you.
Yeah.
You've got great followership in the marketplace, right? Your brand is fantastic in the marketplace, right? And that doesn't happen without passion. That doesn't happen without hard work. It doesn't happen without innovative thinking. But if you can just kind of open up a little bit and talk about where that passion lies and where it comes from and why.
That's a good question. Some of it is probably just innate. Like, I don't know, I'm a Scorpio. Is that why? Heck no. Who knows? Part of it's personality. It's just the way I'm built. I don't know. Contingency for me, though, why it has always resonated and why I love it so much, there's two reasons. One, it moves quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting is, I started my career out actually on the temporary placement. And when I moved from that to a contingent model, that was actually very slow. Like I thought, oh my gosh, contingent, this moves so slow. Direct placement, it was really more temporary versus direct. Like, wow, it just moves so much slower. And so now that this is my new pace, right, I'm like retained. It's because it's a project-oriented search. So it's a very deep, very thoughtful process. And I'm just used to tell me what you need and I go, right? And I go find it. And so one, I think is because it moves quickly, so it feeds my soul. Two, the people feed my soul.
Yeah.
I love, it's the one thing. So right now I'm recruiting. I'm kind of back in a recruiting scene, old school, like sourcing and calling people and interviewing. And it lights me up. And I think it's because it's that one-on-one, those conversations. People always ask you for advice. Is there anything on my resume that you think is, that I could improve, or, it's things like that, that opportunity to assist someone in their search, whether you are the one that is behind that or not. At least if you were able to give them a nugget or help them in their career in any way, that has always, always, always been such a driving factor for me. I think that above all things, just being able to help people in their careers, because at the end of the day, our careers, they really do kind of drive our everything, right? It's behind how much fun we get to have in our life. I hate to say it, but our jobs really do drive the outcome of our life, right? Do we get to go on vacation or not? Do we get to live in that house that we want or not? At the end of the day, it's just helping individuals recognize their gifts and talents so that they can then go do big and better things.
I love it. And on the client side, right, it's helping transform their businesses, right? The client's businesses. When you bring them talent for the key roles, you can see that talent flourish. You also just see the impact that it has, on the client side, which I'm sure would be fulfilling as well.
Absolutely. Well, and that's another thing I love too, right, is when I love that consultative approach. I do better in a search when I have the opportunity to kind of walk side by side with my client and say, when they ask me, Kim, what do you think? Like, this is what we're looking for, but this is where the business is. Do you think that aligns with the role that we're looking for, or what are your thoughts?
So literally, truly having that more consultative approach, or using that consultative skill set that you have that helps fill the cup, which makes sense. And I would assume the clients we develop, or the clients that you've had in the past, they keep coming back to you specifically because of that. That makes a lot of sense. Absolutely.
Well, and I will tell somebody if I think an opportunity doesn't really make sense for where they are at a certain time. I don't always know, right? Like I would say 80% of the time they're going to tell me what they need, and I'm going to trust them and go find it. But if there are red flags, if there are things that I hear and I'm like, hey, have you ever thought about, or maybe perhaps consider, from that perspective. For example, let's say an organization is looking for a CFO. And then I get them, I start talking about the dynamics of the organization and the growth trajectory that they're on, and maybe the historical, kind of trajectory walking to where they are right now. They may not need a CFO.
Right.
They need a fractional CFO, and they just need a controller, or maybe they don't even need a controller. They just need a really solid, senior accountant who can run, or just a bookkeeper. Oftentimes, I've had companies say I need a CFO, only to find out they were generating $3 to $5 million in revenue, and I'm like, you really just need a good bookkeeper and a good accounting firm right now, and maybe a fractional CFO.
Absolutely. And as they grow and evolve, you can address those other, maybe more senior roles as they grow and evolve. And
exactly.
But right now, you don't need a CFO, right? You need someone that maybe doesn't have that horsepower. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Let me switch gears. With your exposure to the contingency industry and putting Amplify aside, from a client perspective, what do you think the key differentiators are in contingency search that set contingency search firms apart from one another from a client point of view? So, and especially since the industry's evolved, but what would you say are the key characteristics that, Aris Amplify will, I'm sure, embrace these critical differentiations, but what would they be in your
By and large, contingent practices have a tendency to be a little transactional, moving very quickly. There's a lot of opportunities on their desk. Not all of them are going to get attention because they have to kind of prioritize. So I think what makes a really good contingent firm different from one that maybe has some challenges is the people element again. It really does come down to relationships. So are you a trusted partner or are you a vendor? That's one of the hardest things when you're training new individuals on the contingent side is you're not just taking a job order. You're building a relationship. This is not about this one opportunity that they're giving you. This is about the lifelong relationship that hopefully you're going to have with them. And it all starts in this one moment, right? It starts right now in how you take this quote unquote job order from them, right? That it can't just be about that. And I think there's a lot of organizations out there, contingent practices, that they get individuals in, they train them how to recruit. I'm not saying that their practices are bad at all. I just think one thing they're missing is they take a very transactional in nature business and allow it to stay that way. And they don't train people on how to connect and how to build relationships and how to really serve the client, because that's what it really comes down to.
Love it. You got that one down pat. Fantastic. I want to do a speed round if that's cool. With some of the speed round questions, and you can ask
Okay.
me and I'll ask you. But one word to describe your work style, Kim. What's one word?
I'm going to cheat on myself, or I'm going to title on myself, because, for all the people listening out there, we may or may not have a cheat sheet and knew what we were going to talk about here. So I wrote down the word manic, and then I thought, no, okay, that is not what I meant. It's just right that, it's moving very fast and things are just constantly moving. There's a lot of moving parts. But I'm going to go ahead and retract that word, and I'm going to say adaptable. It's a little friendlier. It sounds a little nicer. But I would say I have a gift, actually, of kind of molding into whatever the need of the day is. So do I need to be like the C-suite person who's building something and creating? Sure, I can do that. Do I need to put my recruiter hat on and do that for the week? Sure, I can do that. Whatever, do I need to go make coffee? Tell me where it is. I'll do it. I don't care. So I'm very adaptable. How's that?
That is perfect. I like it. That's a great answer.
What's yours before we go to the next one?
My one word to describe my work style, I've thought about this and it's hard for me to come up with one word. If I had to come up with one word, right, I'm not running a desk right now, right? I'm not on the front lines working on searches. I miss it, but that's not my current station in career, station in life right now. That's what I'm doing. So one word that would describe my work style would probably be urgency.
That's good. Better than manic.
Yeah. And it's not even urgency around like, when you're running a desk, right, you've got to move with urgency because, it's clients' expectations and you got to keep candidates interested, right? You got to basically, the tide is always running against you. You've got to row against the tide.
Right.
And you've got to row aggressively and urgently, right, in order to stay ahead of the game. But in my world, there's still a lot of urgency because we're growing and it's fun. It's fun to grow a company, right? It's fun to add brand new divisions and partner with leaders like yourself. But I have to move with urgency to make sure that I'm serving my team to the best of my ability, and to make sure they have what they need to reach their optimal success, right? And so urgency would definitely be at least at this specific station in my career.
Right.
What's your go-to productivity hack?
I don't know if this is a hack, but this is how I survive. I have a handheld planner to this day, people. I mean, so I write everything down on the page and oftentimes correlates to my calendar. So I don't leave until I can check most of the boxes. And if I don't check them, then I move them to the next day. But I write everything down, everything, every little thing. And the last one too, at night, when ideas pop into my mind, I email myself so that when I get to the office the next day, I've got a whole list of things that I thought about at night.
That's good. That's really good. If I had to answer that question, mine is very, I sound like I know I look very old, but I sound like I'm old when I say this, but I've learned that a productivity hack, my number one is sleep. Believe it or not.
That's a good one.
When I don't, I for years, I would just, kind of burn it on both ends. And so I'm focused on sleep makes me a lot more productive. And I know that's a random answer, but that's an honest answer.
It's not. It's actually brilliant. It's brilliant. And I'm just saying, like, I'm early to bed, early to rise.
Yeah.
It's just ingrained.
It works. And I've learned that if I don't get sleep, my productivity will drop and it will drop significantly. So that's critical for me. What is your biggest career highlight so far?
Honestly, even though I stepped away from it, launching my own business, the fact that I did it, like I woke up one day and I just said, I'm going to do this, and I did it, and I created it, and it actually generated revenue. It was a solid experience. I have zero, like hashtag no regrets. I have no regrets. It was the fact that it was a viable business that was doing all right. I feel like, wow, I did that. Glad I'm not doing it now, but that was a lot of fun.
Makes a lot of sense. And it's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears goes into that. But when it pays off, it's awesome.
It was. But still, just that's the hardest part is actually just deciding to do it and then taking the leap, because it's such a scary move. And I can I already did that. Box checked. Okay, now I can move on and join Aris Amplify.
That's great. And we're so fortunate to have you. Thank you. for joining the family. I know I keep saying that, but I mean it genuinely. It's huge.
Oh, thanks. I
If I
feel
had to
the
talk,
same.
I don't know if I don't know if I have a career highlight. I mean, for me, I get the most satisfaction or the highlight when internal team members, basically, they work very hard and they work smart. They understand, they start to learn our processes. Most individuals haven't been in search before they join Charles Aris, but watching them finally put the pieces of the puzzle together and they start to flourish
Yeah.
and they start to have success, and not only financial success, but just success with creating a lot of meaningful relationships with candidates and clients, servicing those clients, and understanding the value that search brings, right? The value that human capital brings to organizations with what we specialize in.
Yeah.
It's critically important. And once they start to embrace it and have success and build that passion around it, that's my career highlight right now. And I know that's not like something personally I've done. I don't have anything personally I've done that's like a highlight, but it'd be more for me just watching team members have success and flourish and embrace the industry and embrace our culture, right, at Charles Aris and our core values. So that's kind of a
Well,
roundabout answer, but that's where I am.
I love it, but I want to interject just real quick and say, Charles Aris is a family organization. But one thing that is so cool about this company is, Mitch grew it he built something so fabulous and so wonderful, right? And it's just a tribute to his tenacity and his ability and his gift in this industry. And you and Chad were lucky enough to walk in and have this organization, but it's not like we know these families, right, where the individuals, they walk into the family business and it's kind of a joke, like they're there and they have their roles, but do they?
Yeah.
And that is not what this is. It's like, that what got us here, you guys picked it up, what Mitch created, and took it to the next level and just continue to do that. And so I would say that's a huge testament to you and Chad both. You didn't just rest on the laurels of what Mitch created. You continue to build it and make it better. And I think that's huge.
It's very kind words. Thank you. I wish I could take a lot of the credit for the success we've had. And I'm blessed much more than I deserve. And I feel like the team that we put in place and we continue to add to is really what raises the bar and creates a lot of that success. But I will say I'll never forget the first week when I joined and meeting with Mitch, my one-on-one with Mitch. And, growing up, you know where you stand with Mitch. He's a straight shooter, but I'll never forget him saying, it doesn't matter what your last name is. If you don't produce, you don't work here.
Yeah.
Period. And I started as an associate at Charles Aris, right? I started at the entry level, and it was a very humbling experience, I would say. But I'm so thankful for it, right? I'm so thankful for it, where you learn the business from the ground up. You've got to earn your seat, and everyone has to earn their seat, right? And that's it's like Mitch instilled that culture, right? You've got to earn your seat regardless of your role. But the ability to do that at Charles Aris is always here. And it's not a zero-sum game. It's not that one person can get there and somebody wins and gets promotion, somebody loses, right? We've set it up to where there is no internal competition and everyone can win and everyone can get promoted. And everyone can continue to earn their seat when they're doing great work, which is
a playing field. I mean,
yes.
It's a very simple process.
Yeah, sure. And it's clear and it's transparent, which is critically important. One last question. One app or tool you can't live without?
Chat GPT.
That's mine.
You can't have it. It's mine. We'll share it. It's everything.
It's the greatest thought partner that I've had probably ever. But you got to understand the prompts and how to use it effectively. And it's not perfect, right? But it's amazing
how
well
you can have a conversation with it now, though. Like you can hit the button and have an actual conversation. Do you know that?
I haven't checked that out yet.
I'll show you later, but it's the coolest thing. You can say, "Hey there, how you doing?" And they'll pop up and say, "Hey, I'm great. How are you?" You ask your question. If they don't answer it the way you like, you're like, "Well, that's close, but not quite it." And then they'll come back and say, "Oh, well, what about this?" And it's amazing.
Yeah, I've got to check that out. That's pretty cool. And we're just getting started on it, right, with the large language models and GPT and all the capabilities. But it is an amazing thought partner. And I feel like it does get better. The quality of results get better and better. But I'm also thankful that, we discussed it. It can't replace meaningful conversations and it can't replace the human connection that is so critical in our industry. Yeah, it's so critical in our industry. And that's what makes our industry fun when you work in it, right? The human connections, right? That's what we talked about. So it makes it fun. So again, so very, very fortunate Before we jump, I would like to talk a little bit about your thoughts on process and contingency search, right? In executive search side, we have a 14-step process that we use. In the
Right.
contingency world, like you always need a process, right? No matter what you're doing, whether you're in business or, personal life. But how critically important in the contingency world is that as following a process, like a distinct process, that critically important, or is it in your opinion, is it more of a, we don't necessarily need the process, we just got to find the candidates? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think anything you're doing in life has to have a process, right?
Yep.
I think process builds efficiency. Lack of a process is where, even if we are moving fast, and even if I can say, oh, we don't need a process, there's something to be said for that. Not having a process is our process, but I don't mean that. We actually have legitimate steps that we follow that are essential. If you don't have it, you're inefficient. And if you don't have those fully identified steps that lead you from A to Z, how do you know where the gaps are? How do you know where your inefficiencies are? You have to be able to build a game plan to know how to improve.
Right. Continuous improvement and how to streamline. I love it.
Yeah.
Right. I've always felt like you follow a process, as long as that process is sound, the byproduct will be success. No matter what
Yeah.
however you define a success, what you're doing, whether in business or personal life, whatever it is, it's critically important. And the processes that really you've built out for Amplify, and makes a whole lot of sense when you say continual improvement, but processes are pretty damn good right now, and they're clearly showing the results. So that's huge. But I am glad that we touched a little bit on process. I think that's critically important. That's a wrap for today's episode of the Charles Aris Podcast. A big thank you to Kim for joining us and sharing valuable insights. Be sure to follow us on your favorite podcast platform and stay tuned for more great conversations. See you next time.